Hello, today we are going to talk about kd-builder, which is kdesrc-build, but rewritten from Perl into Python. This is the current Git repository. And Andrew Shark asked in Matrix if people want to test kd-builder. Let's do a test run, see what's the status of this Git repository kd-builder. Okay, so it starts by having one top-level executable, which is kd-builder, and then there's another top-level executable, which is kd-builder-launch, and says that kd-builder-launch is replacement for kdsrc-run, and kd-builder is replacement for kdsrc-build. The KD community uses the build framework kdsrc-build in order to build from Git master branch the latest version of the KD Git repository, so KD frameworks version 6, KD Plasma, and KD Gears applications and other applications and libraries. It's written in Perl. Let's look at some Perl. So there's a top-level executable named kdesrc-build, which is Perl source code. And this and all of the other source code that's written in Perl were written into Python. Okay, so the Perl Git repository is https invent-kd.org sdk kdesrc-build, and the Python repository is invent.kd.org/a#/kd-builder. Let's start following the readme of the Python 1. So says that Python is required and the required version is at least 3.12. Let's see what version I have available on my system. So that would be Python ---- version. No such thing. I'm on Kubuntu 23.10, Python 3. So Python 3 version is 3.11.6, which is less than the minimum needed, which is 3.12. In order to have Python 3.12 on my machine, I'm going to install a Python version manager. Okay, and the Python version manager is this one, pyenv, pyenv environment. Okay, let's read through the readme. So says that it allows you to switch between multiple versions of Python, which we want. So we have 3.11 installed in /usr using deb packages from Ubuntu, from my Linux operating system. But I still want 3.12 installed just per my user, not system-wide. Okay, let's see how this thing is installed and runs. Getting pyenv, we could use the curl bash automatic installer, or we could git checkout. Let's do that. So in my home directory, in the hidden directory .pyenv, I git cloned the Git repository. This is optional speedups, which I do not necessarily need. And then it says for bash, we want to append at the end of the .bashrc file from my home directory these 3 lines. So let's actually make this a block. Echo start of pyenv Let's see if this works. And comment it out. Should I enclose it in single quotes? I know, let's try. Okay, so three lines will be added at the end of the .bashrc file. And in order for me to be able to identify these lines and delete them easily, I've put a comment which says start of pyenv and another comment end of pyenv. Let's see how the things look like. Okay. Let's look at this file with the text editor. The very end. So it says start of pyenv. The three lines and end of pyenv. That's what I wanted. Okay, I don't need this thing anymore. Next up, I'll just do it for bashrc, not for bash profile or for dot profile. This is enough for me. I'll just need to open a new tab in console and the new environment will be there available for me. So let's look at what this new environment looks like. Okay, Ctrl-Shift-T, open a new tab in console, and then says there's an environment variable named pyenv_root. Is it? Yes, it is. And then the path is edited by prepending tilde/.pyenv/bin. Which it is. So shims and bin are at the start of my path environment variable. Okay, so I'm inside of this environment as far as I know. Right now in my second tab in console. Let's close the first one and continue with the instructions. Okay. Next up says open a new terminal, which I did. And then I need to install deb packages from my Linux operating system, which is in the family of Debian. So I need to run this command line. Paste. It goes apt update and then apt install packages needed for building C source code and the Python project. Okay, that would be it. And then the command line to use is pyenv install. Let's look at it. We're going to start with the first command line, which is list. So -list or -l. Huge list. Let's pipe it through less. So there's the Python versions available from the official Python website, which is python.org. These so official Python tarball releases for Linux. And then there's other projects which offer a Python interpreter, such as ActivePython, Anaconda, etc. Miniconda, PyPy. So we want the newest that doesn't have text in front of it, so just numbers and dots, and that's not unstable. So this would be it. Okay, why can't we just download a binary tarball from the Python website? Can we do that? I don't know. All downloads. And for Linux, there's just source code available. For Windows, yeah, there are installers or zip files. Not just the installer. Whereas for Linux, it offers source release tarballs, either gzipped or xz compressed. So we're still going to need to build Python from source, even if we do not use pyenv. We just download one of these two tarballs and build it. So let's let pyenv actually compile Python from source. Okay. And the next thing we want to do is to actually install with a command line like this. Let's copy the version that we want. Let's look at the command line again. Okay, so says pyenv install, and then the parameters are optional version, and we can enable verbose if we want. So let's do that. Okay, so pyenv install -v for verbose, and then the version that we computed before. Ctrl-Shift-V. It's downloading the XZ compressed tarball source archive from the Python organization, the official source code tarball. This is the /configure step. It's a bit slower because it's GNU configure, not CMake or something faster. And then it does the make step, which compiles and links, creates binary files, executables, shared libraries, etc. It's unexpectedly fast. This is the make install phase, which takes the build files and copies them to the correct place. And that's it. Now we have a Python version compiled from source and installed into this directory. Okay. Next up, what we need to do is to configure a Python. So pyenv global means that we'll put this version of Python that we just installed here as the Python that's going to be used by my user. And that's what I want to do. So this command line with the correct version, so 12.1. And now we can switch between the Python that's installed in /usr using Ubuntu dev packages from my Linux operating system and this version that we just installed here. And the way to switch is using pyenv versions. Okay. This asterisk is the Python installation that's the current default for my user. I could switch back to system. System means /usr, and 3.12.1 is installed in here. Next up, we'll go to the Git repository of kd-builder, and we'll continue reading instructions. Said we should have Python 3.12, which we now have, and then that we should create this directory. So let's create it. Dir. Okay, change into it. in kdesrc-build, the default directory is tilde/kd. But we do not want to conflict with kdesrc-build because I already have two installations of kdesrc-build, one for Qt6 and another for Qt5. So I'm going to go with this tilde/development directory. Okay, this is cloning using SSH. Let me clone using HTTP protocol. Git clone, Ctrl+Shift+V. And then it says that I should change into the directory that I just created by git cloning. And I should have pipenv available. I'm not sure what this thing is. Let's search. So it's called pipenv. We've installed pyenv, and now we're installing pipenv. Pip being the Python installer. Okay, it suggests that I install per user, but since my Python installation is per user, I'm not going to use this flag. So I'm just going to go pip install pip. Not like this. Let's create a venv in the current directory. So which Python? This one. -m venv.venv, the common way of creating a .venv directory. And next we need to source the activate. So .venv, which is the hidden directory in this directory. And then there's bin and then activate for bash. I'm using the bash command line shell. Okay, and now it says that we're inside the virtual environment.venv in the current directory. Let's now install packages using pip. So pip install pipenv. Okay, so we have pipenv, and now we need to run pipenv install. That's because there's a configuration file in here, so pip file and pip file.log. So let's do that. Let's see if pipenv is available. It is. Let's see where is it installed. So it's installed inside the venv in the current directory, which is correct. Pipenv install. Okay. It has installed all of the needed packages, hopefully. And then it says that we should use Python to run kd-builder and then pretend and then kcalc. But then the correct way to do it is you also need to create a kdesrc-bashrc file. So let's do that. Let's look at the official instructions from the KD community. So get involved, development, set up kdesrc-build. I have these packages already installed. I'm not using this Git repository. I need to run this thing. So let's see if the files are actually executable. And they are kde-builder, the replacement for kdesrc-build, kd-builder-launch, replacement for kdesrc-run. So I'm going to run exactly as written in here, but with the correct file name. So // kd-builder space and then this command line parameter -- initial -setup. It ran this command line sudo apt install many, I'm not sure, 200 deb packages which have a ton of dependencies. Mostly packages with names that end in -dev, which means C programming language or C++ programming language .h files. Because we want to build source code from the KDE community, from the KDE Git repositories. Okay, it says it has created the kdesrc-build rc configuration file in the same place as kdesrc-build Git repository, so in tilde/.config. And then I do not want to edit my bash rc, never ever. Okay. I'm not going to use this file because again I have two other kdesrc-build installations and I do not want any conflict there. So I'm going to move it to the current directory. Let's look at it. Okay, so I have a file kdesrc-build rc in the current directory, in the directory where I git cloned the kde-builder Git repository, this one. And this will take precedence over all of the other possible configuration files. If I have in the current directory where I am running kd-builder from a file kdesrc-build, this will take precedence. I'm going to edit the configuration file as needed. So this has been renamed. Where is it? To tilde/development. I'm going to do replace all. This I always change to debug. So the CMake build configuration such that I can debug C++ source code in the debugger, in Qt Creator usually. Numcourse make it the biggest possible, which is I have 16 CPU threads. The rest of the settings I keep them as they are defaults. But they seem okay. They use the correct configuration file from the correct directory. Okay, save and close. And now we're prepared to go to the second step. So the first was to run kdesrc-build initial setup, which installs the packages from my Linux distribution, which are the dependencies, the requirements for building KDE source code, and then it created the configuration file kdesrc-build rc. The next step is to actually use kdesrc-build to build software. Okay, let's be back to the Git repository. The first project that I always build is kconfig, which is a KDE framework. So let's see how that works. I want to run kde-builder. It's executable. It's in the current directory. It's a Python source code shell script. Okay. And it suggests that I use --p10. So let's do that. The first Git repository that I build is always kconfig. And let's see how that works. So it tries to do the correct thing, which is to build, git clone 3 KDE Git repositories, sysadmin repo metadata, ECM extra CMake modules, and kconfig. Okay. The software is not done yet, KDE-builder. There's issues. It's not, the development has not finished yet. Could not change directory because why? There's no directory src. So it should have created this directory, right? So that directory would be here, src build. Let's see now. Okay, and in here we hit a place where development is not done yet. There's a to-do point, and that's where it stops. Okay, so that was all for how we git clone the Git repository invent.kd.org/a/kd-builder and what we can do with it. The step -- initial setup works okay, but then when we actually want to build a KD Git repository, there we hit to-do points. Let's also look very shortly at the source code. Let's use the PyCharm Community Integrated Development Environment for Python. Let's close the existing projects. Let's answer here. Okay. And we're going to open the project. So tilde/development/kdbuilder. This is the directory, yes. Okay, it finds the subdirectory .vnv and it's going to use it automatically, which is what we want. There's the configuration file, and then there's the executable file. So let's actually run this thing and enter inside it and see what's happening there. So for that, we're going to create a debugger runner configuration, Python, this thing, kde-builder, and we want parameters. And the parameter will be initial setup, so script parameters. Okay. And let's put a breakpoint in here. So there's the header of the file with copyrights. There's import block, and then Python source code. Let's put a breakpoint anywhere in here. Start the debugger, debug kde-builder F5. I'm using the Visual Studio Code key bindings for the integrated development environment, JetBrains, PyCharm community. I'm not sure what it's asking me. Yes, that's what I want, kde-builder and initial setup. There's no valid Python interpreter. Okay. Yeah, that's because it has this yellow bar, this rectangle here, where it says that it has detected inside the current directory, inside the subdirectory .vnv, a Python 3.11 from this project, which I could use and I want to use. Okay, and now we can start debugging. Okay, it stopped at the correct line, 43. And then we have this magic button, which is step into my code, Alt-Shift F7. Which will take us through all of the source code that's part of this Git repository. Hopefully it doesn't enter Python source code. From inside the .vnv or from the Python that we just installed. Okay, all of the source code was written by Andrew Shark, so these are the Git helpers inside of the text editor. Let's use the keyboard. Alt-Shift-F7. Is Debian based, total memory, best distribution. It uses type enforced.enforcer. Most of the call stacks are from inside there, from this Python package enforcer. It uses type hints. It tries to be a equivalent translation of the Perl source code to Python. Okay, so we're still inside source code from this directory. It didn't enter source code that's not written by Andrew Shark, which is what I want. I want to see all of the source code written by Andrew Shark and nothing else. No pip package, no Python standard library. qt5.py. Alt-Shift-F7 stopped working for me. Back to clicking. Okay, let's find the source code where it actually calls apt. Ctrl-Shift-F. Does not work. Let's use the keyboard mappings. I don't have a keyboard anymore. Okay, if we do not want to step a ton, we can run without debugging. Ctrl-F5 in my case. And that complains that sudo cannot use the terminal inside PyCharm. Okay, and the command line is this one that installs the packages. Let's find it in source code. So sudo apt-get no install recommends. Let's search for no install recommends. Ctrl-Shift-F, Ctrl-V. In my project, yes, open in find window. This installs one package because in Debian-based Linux operating systems, if you say apt install and then a long list of deb packages, if one of the deb packages are not available, for instance, it has been renamed, or you do not have enough package repositories configured as apt sources, the entire command line will fail instead of installing the deb packages that it could install. So if that fails, we'll need to try to install each and every one of the packages from that list one by one. First, we try to install all of them in one command line, and then if not, we're going to install them one by one. That's why we have in two places the command line apt-get -q -y no install recommends. And in here installs just one package, whereas in here it installs all of them, hundreds of them at a single time. Okay, so that's cmd-ref. We could put a breakpoint in here. And then There's also this place where cmd's-ref exists. There's a place where sudo is being appended, which is in here. So let's start the debugger and look just inside of this method. Okay, I always have a breakpoint at the very start of the execution, so wherever I can put a first breakpoint, I do put it. And then we're going to resume F5. It goes into the method that we want to debug, this map dictionary thing. Okay, we can step over F10, and it's stepped inside, unfortunately. So F10 doesn't work that correctly for me. Step, where is it? I pressed step into instead of step over. Okay, step over F10. And it entered somewhere. Okay, let's use resume. It jumps to the next breakpoint, 3 to 7 line. And let's see if it computed correctly. So list of supported distributions, which is operating system, because FreeBSD is not a distribution of Linux. Best vendor is Debian, correct. Version does not matter because it's not used. And then it says that it tries to find in here cmd/install/debian/23.10, could not find it. But then it will be able to find cmd/install/debian/unknown. So let's do that. So at the next iteration in this for loop, it will be successful, Debian unknown. It finds it. Let's inspect this thing. So cmd-refs is a dictionary. This thing is, how do we inspect it? Right click. We have evaluate expression, and we have execute selection in Python console. Let's do that. So inside of the debugger, the debug tool window, there's a tab console where when the debugger is paused, you can run Python source code, and it will be run in the context of the current source code line, which is 3 to 8 from first run.py file. Okay. And then it goes split in order to convert a command line or part of a command line to an array, because that's what it's recommended. When you want to start a sub process, it's recommended that you don't pass a single string, but instead you pass an array of each command line parameter. Let's see if F10 works. It does. It found a best vendor, and then it says if get EUID is different than 0, not root, it will use sudo. Okay. So because we're supporting other operating systems that do not have sudo by default, such as Alpine, which prefers to have do as, then it would be good if on line 336 we selected the best out of sudo and do as and use that, not just blindly use sudo, but that's okay. Alpine has a package which says do as is sudo, so you install that, and then you have sudo which actually calls do as. Okay, so it computed the command line, which is an array. And then I'm not sure where we're at. We're inside the enforcer, which we should never be because this is inside of .venv. So get out of there. We have the command line. It's being joined. It looks like this right now: sudo apt -get space -q -y --no install recommends install, and then a long list of the package names. It's not Arch. Okay. It prints that it's running a command line. Using installer for Debian. Let's get out of here. Step over. Okay. In here it writes to the standard output the intention of running sudo, and then it will start a sub process which will then require that I enter my password, which I cannot do inside of the console, inside the debug view tool window, inside the integrated development environment. So this would be it. The source code that's available until now, written in Python, is really okay. It's really similar to the Python, to the original Perl source code in kdesrc-build. The names of files is similar, the names of functions is similar. The intention here is to have feature parity between kdesrc-build and kd-builder, such that if you give them similar command lines, they will do similar things. They will output similar things to the standard output and standard error. They will generate similar log files. And then you will have a way of detecting any differences between kd-builder and kdesrc-build. All of the features that were not implemented yet in kd-builder, you can find them in kdesrc-build. And when this feature parity is achieved, there's hope that we can replace kdesrc-build with kde-builder. We'll see if that works out or not. Thank you, Andrew Shark, and thank you.